A single valley held the keys to 3 continents' minds, and one prophecy that will outlast every empire. Whoever controlled this narrow corridor commanded the movement of armies, goods, and power between Africa, Asia, and Europe. 26 cities rose on this ground, each one burned to ash, each rebuilt Hyming for 5,000 years. The layers here tell 30 centuries of war seas, and the final battle, according to Revelation, has not yet been fought.
A green valley in northern Israel, wheat fields swaying in the wind, grey olive trees tilting southward, Mount Carmel cutting the horizon to the west. Now picture that same valley as the stage where the generals of the ancient world fought more than 34 recorded battles over the span of 3,500 years. This is the story of Armageddon. And the first surprise is simple. The name did not come from the book of Revelation. It came before, long before. Put it in geographic perspective. When the Apostle John wrote the book of Revelation around the year 95 of the Christian era, he used a Hebrew expression transliterated into Greek, Armageddon. In Hebrew, Har means mountain. Megiddo is the name of an ancient city and the valley that stretches below it. Revelation chapter 16 verse 16 describes this location as the point where the armies of the world would be gathered on the final day. And that location, against all expectation, exists physically. It has coordinates, it has soil, it has ruins, it has more than 26 layers of civilizations stacked one on top of another. 26 civilizations, each one ended in fire. Think about the situation of the archaeologists who excavated the site. They found cities upon cities, fortresses upon fortresses, palaces upon palaces. Each layer represents a people who lived there, fought there, and were destroyed there, and all for the same reason. The Valley of Megiddo is the gateway between 3 continents. Consider the geopolitical landscape. The valley, also called the Plain of Jezreel, cuts across northern Israel from west to east for approximately 38 kilometers in length and up to 19 kilometers in width. It connects the Mediterranean Sea to the west with the Jordan River to the east. Whoever controlled this corridor controlled the trade route between Egypt to the south, Mesopotamia to the northeast, and Anatolia to the north. In other words, it controlled one of the 3 most important routes of ancient commerce, the Via Maris, the road of the sea. And that is why so much blood was spilled there. The first battle in human history recorded with complete tactical detail took place in exactly this valley. In the year 1457 before Christ, the pharaoh Thutmose III of Egypt marched with approximately 10,000 soldiers through the narrow pass of Aruna toward Megiddo. On the other side, a coalition of Canaanite kings, led by the king of Kadesh, waited with a comparable force. The royal scribe Chaneni recorded every movement in hieroglyphs on the walls of the Temple of Karnak. And here lies a detail that few people imagine. Those hieroglyphs are the oldest and most detailed military account ever found by archaeology. The Egyptians described the parade of troops, the hesitation of the generals over which route to take, the bold decision of Thutmose to cross the most dangerous gorge, and the plunder that followed. 924 war chariots captured, 202,000 baskets of grain collected, nearly 2,000 oxen confiscated. Egypt dominated the Levant for decades after that victory. And it all began in the same valley that the book of Revelation would call, 1,500 years later, Armageddon. Examine the details of the soil. When modern archaeologists excavated Tel Megiddo beginning in the late 19th century, they found enormous grain silos, stables for nearly 500 horses, underground water systems that descended more than 30 meters toward hidden springs to withstand prolonged sieges. The hydraulic engineering of that place surprised even 20th century engineers. The ancient inhabitants carved a tunnel 92 meters long through solid rock to reach a spring outside the walls. Without the enemy knowing, silence beneath the earth, safe water within the walls. But Megiddo was not a stage only for pharaohs. Go deeper into the Bible. In Judges chapter 5, verse 19, the prophetess Deborah sings of the victory over the kings of Canaan at the waters of Megiddo. The plain witnessed the rout of the troops of Sisera, who commanded 900 iron chariots. The Israelite forces, led by Barak, descended from Mount Tabor in a storm that turned the valley floor to mud. Sisera's chariots sank. The cavalry became dead weight, and the most advanced army in the region was destroyed by a combination of courage, faith, and weather. Follow the historical thread. Centuries later, in the year 609 before Christ, King Josiah of Judah, considered one of the most righteous monarchs in biblical history, marched against Pharaoh Necho II in the same valley. 2 Kings chapter 23, verses 29 and 30, describes the outcome. Josiah, approximately 39 years old, was struck by an Egyptian arrow at Megiddo. His servants carried him in a chariot while he was dying toward Jerusalem. He died along the way. The entire nation wept. The prophet Jeremiah composed laments for Josiah, recorded in 2 Chronicles chapter 35, verse 25. And the trauma of that loss was so deeply imprinted on the people of Israel that the prophet Zechariah, more than a century later, used that tragedy as a reference point for the greatest conceivable mourning. Zechariah chapter 12, verse 11, speaks of the lamentation in the plain of Megiddo as the measure of ultimate grief. That valley had already become synonymous with irreparable defeat, long before it became synonymous with the final battle. Measure the magnitude of the collective trauma. For the Hebrews, Megiddo was the place where kings fell, where prophecies were fulfilled, where history pivoted, not by accident, by geography itself. Consider the military landscape. The Valley of Jezreel is, in topographical terms, the only corridor wide enough to move large armies through in northern Israel. Mountains surround it on all sides. To the south, the ridge of Mount Carmel. To the north, the hills of Galilee. To the east, Mount Gilboa. To the west, the coastal plain. Any force wanting to move from Egypt to Mesopotamia or back again had to pass through there. It was a funnel, and every funnel that channels armies channels blood as well. Grasp the challenge facing the ancient generals. Imagine leading 20,000 soldiers, 3,000 horses, 800 war chariots, and 40 days of supplies through a single corridor less than 40 kilometers wide, knowing that the enemy had chosen the high ground. That was the game, and everyone played it. Move forward in time. In the year 344 before Christ, Alexander the Great passed through the same region during his campaign against the Persian Empire. Although he did not fight directly at Megiddo, he crossed the valley on his way to Egypt, retracing the route that pharaohs had traveled 1,000 years earlier in the opposite direction. Geography compelled it. History accumulated in layers. Observe the scene of 1187 after Christ. The European Crusaders, after nearly a century dominating parts of the Holy Land, faced the Sultan Saladin. Although the decisive battle took place at the Horns of Hattin, north of the valley, part of the Crusader forces had been marching across the plain of Jezreel. After the Crusader defeat, the region changed hands, and the soil of Megiddo received yet another layer of broken weapons, human bones, and ash. Witness the leap forward in time. On the 16th of April of 1799, Napoleon Bonaparte, at the height of his campaign through the East, defeated an Ottoman army of approximately 35,000 soldiers on the plain of Jezreel. The Battle of Mount Tabor, fought at the foot of the very same mountain from which Barak descended in biblical times, demonstrated that the Frenchmen understood the geopolitical significance of the valley. Napoleon reportedly remarked, while surveying the plain, that it was the perfect stage for a decisive battle between all the nations of the world. A modern general, without realizing it, was echoing the book of Revelation, and history did not stop there. On the 19th of September of 1918, in the context of the First World War, the British General Edmund Allenby led what became known as the Battle of Megiddo. It was one of the final confrontations between the British forces and the Ottoman Empire. The British army advanced through the same valley, defeated the Ottoman forces in a matter of days, and opened the road to the fall of Damascus. Allenby, in recognition of the symbolic importance of the location, was later awarded the title of Viscount of Megiddo. Think about the weight of that title. In the 20th century, a British lord was named after the valley cited in the Book of Revelation. The first systematic archaeological excavation of Tel Megiddo began in 1875, led by the German scholar Gottlieb Schumacher. Decades later, between 1925 and 1939, the Oriental Institute of the University of Chicago led a monumental mission that removed entire layers of the TL. They found an ivory carving depicting scenes of a royal banquet from the 13th century before Christ. They found a circular stone altar, approximately 7 meters in diameter, dated to the beginning of the Bronze Age. They found horse skeletons alongside stables long attributed to King Solomon, though the Solomonic dating of certain structures is debated among modern archaeologists. And they found something more disturbing. In different layers of destruction, the archaeologists identified signs of violent fires, collapsed walls, and human remains in positions suggesting sudden death. Entire cities burned down to their foundations. Each layer is the end of a world. And above the ashes, someone came, cleared the site, and built another city, and that one burned too, and another, and another. 26 times, 26 civilizations built upon the ruins of one another. Put it in human perspective. Each of those cities had mothers cooking, children running, merchants trading, soldiers keeping watch, priests performing rituals, and every one of those lives ended in fire or siege. The archaeological silos held grain scorched by heat. The skeletons found near city gates show people who tried to flee and could not. Forensic studies indicate wounds from spears, swords, and arrows in vertebrae and ribs. The estimated infant mortality rate in the late Bronze Age in the region reached 45% before the age of 5. And that was in times of peace. In times of war, the valley became a cemetery. Explore the human cost for the ancient soldiers. A Canaanite soldier of the 2nd millennium before Christ carried a leather shield reinforced with bronze, a spear more than 2 meters long, a curved dagger, and frequently a sling. The average weight of the equipment was around 15 kilograms. That is the weight of a 3-year-old child hanging from your shoulder all day. On marches through the valley under temperatures exceeding 38 degrees Celsius in summer, with limited access to fresh water, these men walked up to 30 kilometers a day. Severe dehydration, heat stroke, and dysentery killed nearly as many as the battles themselves. Modern estimates based on Assyrian and Egyptian records suggest that on long campaigns, up to 1/3 of the troops died of disease before ever facing the enemy. And still, they came. They always came. Examine why. The valley of Jezreel, with its deep alluvial soil, produced wheat, barley, olive trees, grapevines, and fig trees in extraordinary quantities. In good years, the harvest could feed up to 80,000 people. Whoever dominated that soil dominated the hunger or the abundance of an entire region. And food, in the ancient world, was absolute power. Consider the engineering of the high city. Tel Megiddo, seen from a distance, is an artificial hill. It was not formed by nature. It was raised by the civilizations themselves, layer upon layer, over more than 5,000 years of continuous occupation. It stands approximately 21 meters above the natural floor of the valley. That is the height of a 7-story building made not of concrete, but of entire generations buried beneath the surface. Each of those meters corresponds to centuries of construction and destruction. In archaeology, a tell is literally a vertical archive of human history. Think about what that means for the modern reader. If you stand today at the top of Tel Megiddo, you are standing on the bones of Babylonians, Canaanites, Hebrews, Egyptians, Greeks, Romans, Persians, and Ottomans, all buried by time, all forgotten by name, but present in the composition of the soil. And yet, the silence of the valley today is deceiving. Follow the current landscape. The plain of Jezreel is one of the most productive agricultural regions in Israel in the 21st century. Cotton, corn, wheat, sunflower, and avocado are cultivated there. The modern kibbutzim have transformed the valley into a mosaic of farmland. Paved roads cut through what were once battle routes. Tractors pass over the ground where Thutmose III drove his war chariots. The sound that prevails today is that of agricultural machinery and birds, not drums, not screams, and it is precisely that contrast that makes the prophecy most unsettling. Revelation chapter 16, verses 16 and 17, positions Armageddon as the final point of convergence. The text does not describe a battle in tactical detail. It describes a gathering, a moment in which the kings of the earth assemble. And the valley, geographically, is literally capable of hosting such an assembly. Modern military modeling estimates that the plain of Jezreel could simultaneously accommodate more than 400,000 soldiers in formation, with room for logistics and movement. That is the equivalent of 4 Maracana stadiums lined up side by side, multiplied by 10. It is the only terrain of its kind in the entire Levant region. Geographic coincidence or literal fulfillment? The theological debate is vast, but the valley exists, and it has the capacity. Examine the details of the prophecy. The text of Revelation was written around the year 95 of the Christian era, at a time when Megiddo was no longer a significant city. It had been destroyed by the last relevant Assyrian king in the region hundreds of years before. When John wrote, Megiddo was practically a ruin in the middle of an agricultural valley, and yet the apostle named it as the site of the final gathering. Not Rome, not Babylon, not Jerusalem, Megiddo. But the most brutal accounting had not yet even begun, from the perspective of the military historian. Follow the list that researchers have compiled. Beyond the confrontations already cited, records show battles at Megiddo involving the Assyrians under Tiglath-Pileser III in the 8th century before Christ, the Persian armies in the 6th century before Christ, the Seleucids in the 2nd century before Christ, the Romans during the First Jewish-Roman War, the Byzantines, the Arabs of the Umayyad Caliphate, the Mamluks, the Ottomans. More than 34 significant battles documented, with the real possibility that many smaller engagements went unrecorded. Put the time in perspective. 3,500 years of cyclical carnage on the same soil. And the records reveal something no one expected. In one of the oldest layers excavated at Megiddo, dated to approximately 3,000 years before Christ, a circular cultic structure was found with clear signs of animal sacrifice. In one of the most recent layers, at the Roman level, fragments of military pavement. Between one and the other, thousands of objects, arrowheads, pottery fragments, jewelry, coins, remnants of armor. Each object is a soldier, a merchant, a farmer. And all of them ended up beneath the earth that today produces avocados. Examine the deepest contrast. The Valley of Jezreel is today one of the greenest and most productive regions of Israel. The ruins of Tel Megiddo were recognized by UNESCO as a World Heritage Site in the year 2005, together with 2 other biblical tells. Tourists walk among the remnants of the gates. Archaeology students visit the site in summer programs. Admission costs the equivalent of 28 shekels, around $8. Tens of thousands of visitors pass through the site each year, and almost none of them imagine the weight of what they are walking on. Put the paradox in perspective. A valley that served for 3,500 years as a stage of destruction. A name cited only once in the entire New Testament in exactly this prophetic context. A topography that matches the prophecy. A military history that confirms the function of the place. And a current landscape that conceals everything beneath golden wheat and olive groves. Megiddo is living proof that geography, prophecy, and history intersect at precise points on the map. Move toward the broader meaning. When the book of Revelation was canonized among the early Christians, Armageddon became a metaphor. For the reformers of the 16th century, it was a symbol of the final spiritual conflict. For apocalyptic writers of the 19th century, it was the setting for a future battle between nations. For contemporary theologians, depending on the school of interpretation, it is literal, symbolic, or both. The discussion continues. But the valley endures. Unchanged in its geography, cumulative in its history. Think about what that teaches us about time. Physical places hold memory. Each battle imprints something in the soil. Each construction built over ruins records a choice. Each prophecy anchored in geography requires a real point on the map, and Megiddo is that point. Consider what remains. Today, beside the archaeological tell, there is a kibbutz bearing the same name. There is a maximum security prison a few kilometers away, ironically. There is a railway station. There are cultivated fields. There are families living in peace on the very soil, where, according to the biblical account, all the armies of the earth will one day gather. The children of the kibbutz grow up knowing that the name of their home is also the name of the end of the world, according to the book of Revelation. And yet they plant, they harvest, they play, they study. Perhaps that is the greatest lesson of the valley. Life continues on the stage of the bloodiest history humanity has ever known. People plant where others died. They build homes where others saw ash. They dream of children in the same places where others wept for theirs. And the valley waits, as it has always waited. The first battle recorded with complete tactical detail in human history happened there. The last one, according to the prophetic account, will happen there as well. Between the pharaoh Thutmose III and the apocalyptic expectation, more than 3,500 years of military history testify that the Valley of Jezreel is no ordinary place. It is the corridor of nations, the funnel of the world, the final stage. For the believer, the prophecy has a face and an address. For the secular reader, the historical coincidence is striking enough on its own. For the archaeologist, each layer tells a story that confirms the strategic importance of the soil. For the modern farmer of the valley, the harvest is simply the continuation of 5,000 years of people planting and dying on the same land. And for you, who have just discovered that Armageddon exists on the map, there remains a quiet certainty. The valley is there. The name is in the Bible. The history is in the layers. And the future, according to the book of Revelation chapter 16, has not yet written its final battle. Megiddo waits.